Good afternoon, Oak Grove. Happy Thursday. Welcome to this week's installment of our Midweek Update series here on the church's YouTube channel, where I just populate into your devices in the middle of the week to say hello and to try to keep the church on our mind when we're not in worship on Sunday morning, because that's so important for us to do. So thanks for taking a few minutes to hang out with me here today. What I have for you today on this very rainy and somewhat gloomy looking Thursday outside, I'll tell you, my favorite season of the year is approaching. I said it in my newsletter article last year at this time. I didn't talk about it as much this year, but fall is my favorite season. You know, things kick off unofficially for me with my birthday in September and the start of football season, and then you have all the holidays. You have Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I just absolutely adore this time of year. The temperatures are right up my alley. I am neither a fan of the super hot nor the super cold. I love the colors of fall. I love the flavors and the smells of fall. I love everything about fall. So that's not what I'm going to talk about here today, but I'm just sharing with you that, you know, so far fall is not getting off to a super auspicious start here. As far as the weather goes, it's a rainy day today. It's not officially fall yet, I don't think. But so, yeah, what am I going to talk to you about otherwise on this rainy day while we have nothing else going on? Well, whenever I don't have any other content going on here for you, which I don't have anything in particular as far as church announcements that are going on, other than this Sunday is Rally Day. So Sunday school families, please do remember to come on out and support us for Rally Day. We're going to be doing Sunday school registration, and we'll have some food and some games for the kiddos after worship. We will not have Sunday school this week. We will start Sunday school during worship the following week on the 14th, but the Sunday school year kicks off with Rally Day this week. That's the only real announcement that I have about things that are going on that you should know about. And so whenever I otherwise don't have content here for you, anything else that I want to talk about, I said that I would read from the daily lectionary to you. And today in particular, there's something from the daily lectionary that I just really enjoyed. One of the readings that are appointed for today is Psalm 139, verses 1 through 6. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it. So, you know, it can almost seem a little creepy, the thought that, you know, God is in our heads to such a degree, right? There is not one single thing you do at any moment of every day that is not observed by God. There is not a single thought that you think, not a single action you take, not a single word you speak, whether it is out loud to others or whether it is in private, the things that you say to yourself when nobody else is around to hear it, that is not noticed by God. And so, you know, we could get into a really deep conversation that I don't know that we would necessarily get that much spiritually out of it today about the nature of free will. You know, if God knows everything that I'm going to do, then do I really have freedom to do it? Well, some people kind of get hung up on that. That does not actually keep me up at night very much, okay? Because I think to myself, God's foreknowledge doesn't mean that God is consciously controlling what I do. The fact that God knows what I'm going to do next doesn't necessarily mean that God made me do it. At the same time, however, somebody could argue, but God could have interfered and stopped you from doing what you're about to do. Or God could have otherwise supported what you were going to do if it was something that God wanted for you to do. That's a real head scratcher that I'm not going to dip into so much today, but what I want to think about more with regards to those verses is our own intimacy with God. One thing that speaks to, first of all, and I just talked about this in a recent sermon within the last few weeks, within the last month or so, but not everybody that watches these comes to every worship service, and not everybody that watches every worship service comes to these. I spoke a little bit about relationship and the purpose of prayer, right? What does prayer do? Does prayer change God's mind? Well, according to scriptures, sometimes in rare instances, yes. You know, Moses interceded for God to stop from destroying the people multiple times, and God changed his mind when Moses did it. Now, Did God really change God's mind there, or was it more a matter of God waited for Moses to pray before God appeared to change action, to change course? That's something that we'll have to wait until we actually get to ask God someday how that works. But as far as the purpose of prayer, prayer may change God, possibly, once in a rare while. But I think much more often prayer changes us more than it changes God. And that's the thing that I spoke about in a sermon not too long ago. What's the purpose of talking to God if God already knows everything that I'm going to say? Well, because we need to nurture relationship with God. That's why. If God is a family member to us, if God is Father to us, then, you don't maintain your relationships long with your family members if you don't talk to them. And a lot of the time, I remember saying this in a sermon not too long ago, I might look at my spouse, and I'm pretty sure I know what she has to say at any given moment. Most of the time, I know what she's thinking, and she knows what I'm thinking. We could probably get through the day without talking to each other at all. However, I put it to those of you who are married, how long do you think that you would last in your marriage if you never spoke to your spouse, even if you didn't really think it needed to be said? My spouse and I are probably even pretty much on the same wavelength as far as what we'll have for supper tonight, even though we haven't talked about it at all, simply based on our historical patterns of what we usually eat and what is in our freezer right now. But again, I put it to you, how long would your marriage last if you literally never spoke to your spouse? So it is with God. We have to maintain relationship with God, sometimes by saying the things that we know God already knows we're going to say, but we have to say them anyway because saying them helps to transform us, and it maintains and nurtures the relationship between us and God. And so that's one critical dimension to it. And then the other dimension that I'd like to highlight to it is with regards to this intimacy of God knowing every thought, every word, is if you are a human being, regardless of how strong or how weak is your self-esteem, there are days when you are ashamed of the mental, emotional, spiritual baggage that you carry through life. There are days when you are ashamed of the hidden thoughts that you think to yourself when nobody can see what's going on in your head, and the hidden words that you say to yourself sometimes when nobody can hear you. And it might be embarrassing and shameful to think that God knows every one of those. Well, that's one way to look at it. However, maybe the other way to look at it is Jesus Christ went to the cross for you knowing that you thought every one of those thoughts, knowing that you said every one of those words. And he did it for you anyway. So that's the more life-giving way to look at it. Yeah, sometimes I'm a little ashamed to think that God knows every single cross word that goes through this mouth, sometimes when I'm driving, sometimes when the other driver ticks me off, or sometimes the negative thought patterns that I get caught up in when I start to dwell on relationships that are not good in my life and people that I'm starting to think, does this person have a problem with me? Did I upset them at some point? And I start to think, uncharitable thoughts about it. And being a human being, as we all are, those things are going to happen, no matter how disciplined your thought patterns and no matter how strong your self-esteem on any given day. There are going to be the days when you don't feel so proud of who and what you are, and yet God has seen every action. God hears every thought. God hears every word. And yet he still came and died and rose for you and for me. I don't think I need to add a whole lot of commentary beyond that. I don't think I need to explain too much further why that is very, very cool. And so when we hear from Scripture, from this passage that I just read about how well God knows our inner being, there's a life-sapping way in which that can be a mirror about our own failings and our own faults, but it also is life-giving in the sense that we remind ourselves, even when God sees every ugly detail, he doesn't abandon us. He never leaves us. He remains. So that's my reflection on that for the day, Oak Grove. That's my reflection on our daily lectionary reading. I will see you Sunday morning for Rally Day. Please do come on out, Sunday school families, and also Adult Forum regulars. We're going to talk about what we want to study this fall. Please do come on out and join us. Oh, and one other announcement. If any able-bodied folks would like to lend us a hand, we will be doing some property work at the church Saturday morning, working on laying the foundation for the new shed that's going to go into our backyard. Many hands would make light work with that. That's what I got for you today, Oak Grove. I will see you Sunday morning. Take care, stay warm and dry, and God bless.